whole idea is, whoa, there we are. And now we're live from Mosaic Community Fellowship. So the whole idea is we don't have to force our children to be rebellious. God knows that, correct? We know that. We get that. We understand that. And so today's bottom line, what I want you to understand, is what influences you, okay? So go ahead and put this up, Chris, if you've got it. Let's be the second slide. What influences your direction has everything to do with where you are, okay? We talked about that like you pull up to the mall and you walk up to the little kiosk and it says, you are here. It's like, how did it know? I was here. And so what influences your direction, though, has everything to do with your destination. So think of it like this. The rumble strips on the side of the road. I mean, every ski trip, we would take off in the church bus or vans, and we would head to Colorado and be driving along, and the kids would get all comfortable in the seats, and they'd just start kind of dozing off. And then I would get, I'd start counting cows over in this field or looking the trees over there, and I'd kind of drift over and hit the rumble strip, and everybody's like waking up going, Mike, you all right? You're all right? I'm fine. And it's just annoying, right? Sometimes you just hit the rumble strip just to watch them go, and so it's kind of fun. Do you ever see those things that make the rumble strips? I saw one in New Mexico one time. It was really cool. Just a little bitty trailer thing that followed behind this pickup truck, and he's just driving a straight line, and you see all this, and it just kept eating out the pavement. It's pretty cool. But I can tell you this, they may be annoying at times, but at times when it's really foggy, and you can't see nothing but that little white line just, come right at your bumper when you've slowed down. When you start drifting off of it and you feel it, it's like it puts you back in line. It keeps you back on track, If you start dozing off, or get that road, haze, daze, whatever, and it wakes you back up. It can save lives. It can protect you. It can lead you in the right direction and keep you on course. And so they're important to our lives. And so today we're going to be looking at a few things, actually several scriptures, because what captures your attention, this is what I found out for myself, and maybe it may be true for you. What grabs your attention, what captures your attention, has a tendency to be dangerous for you, leads you in a wrong path. But whatever you choose to pay attention to is helpful. How many of you had your teachers tell you to pay attention, right? And I'd always tell them it costs too much, But the whole idea is that when you choose to pay attention to something, it's usually helpful. But something that grabs your attention is sometimes dangerous. Why does the shopping centers and stores put all the stuff that you don't need right up at the front? Because they're hoping it'll grab your attention and you'll throw it in the cart real quick, or that your kids will throw it in the cart real quick, right? I mean, when we stop and think about this, in every area or arena of life, this can be true. I've seen this in relationships. When relationships blow up, all of a sudden, they start paying attention to each other. They start focusing on the other person. They begin to try to find and fix and see what needs to be done. When a life blows up, in the sense, maybe they've lost a loved one or things have happened in their life, and all of a sudden they're kind of drawn to spiritual things and kind of wondering, can God help me out? They start paying attention to God. They start reading His Word, and it can be helpful. Financially, when things blow up, people begin to pay attention to Dave Ramsey or Ron Blue. They begin to watch their budgets and dollars, and they pay attention to it. And that type, when they choose to pay attention, is helpful. The same is even in raising children, helping them with their direction. When children become annoying, that grabs our attention, and we usually bark back. We usually lash out. And that can be dangerous sometimes, right? But in the same time, if you begin to watch them and understand them and begin to disciple them in the sense of discipline, that's what, you begin to discipline in the way of discipleship, you can help them to know who they are. We're going to be looking, I told you it's going to be ADD, attention, direction leads to destination. In the sense that whatever we pay attention to or whatever grabs our attention leads us in a direction. And every direction has a destination. So what you pay attention to has a great impact on the direction through your life. What you choose to pay attention to has a great impact on your direction through life. Now, I notice that none of you are taking notes and going, wow, this is new insight. No, it's pretty common. It's pretty simple. So, to kind of put some parameters around this, let's look at this. Because we are who we are, we have a tendency, most of us in the room, and some of us may be struggling with this, but we think there is a God. Even if you don't think there's a God, let's just play with the idea that there is a God. And that God is the designer of this world. He spun it into motion. He spoke it into existence. He actually created man after His own what? Image. And so the whole idea, this God, who intelligently designed the world and spun it into motion and made us after His image. Now think about this. He wants to have an intimate relationship with you. Because He asks you to call Him heavenly what? Father. Think about that for a minute. Let it soak in. For those of us in the room that are fathers, that's a very unique statement. I mean, everybody has a father, right? Has your father been an example to you? I mean, we've either been a good example or a bad example. We've been an example. That's the whole idea. But I remember with my own dad, being the oldest, I wanted to make my dad proud. I wanted to do things so I could hear him say, good job. But I never really heard my dad say, good job. But my dad always requested my help. It didn't matter whether it was a birthday, even his birthday, or Thanksgiving, or a special event, or maybe just family came over for dinner, one afternoon or evening. He would always go, Mike, come here. I need your hands. I've got a project I'm working on. I need your help. And it took me a while to figure it out because sometimes I'm a little thick-headed. You already knew that. But the whole idea is that was his way of communicating with me. That was his way of building a relationship because our relationship was built around working together. I remember the day that he yelled at me, which, was most days. But I remember this specific day where he yelled at me, and he looked at me, and he was so frustrated. He yelled at me, and he said, "Can't you read my mind?" And I really wanted to say no. I didn't say anything. Remember the TV show MASH? There was this guy on there called Radar. Why did they call him Radar? He did operate the radio, but there was something unique about it. He knew. Yeah, he knew what you needed before you even asked it. They would ask for something, and he'd go, "Here's it," Or, I hear the choppers coming, and everybody's going, "I don't hear anything." And all of a sudden, But he knew. One day it clicked. I was working with my dad, and I went and grabbed a 9/16 wrench. And I walk over, and he goes, "I need a 9." Here you go. I could begin to read his mind. Not read his mind telepathically, but, right? I knew, because I worked with him so much, that I understood what was next. I knew what piece of equipment or motor he was working on. I knew the bolt sizes. I could look at it and kind of get an idea, and I could begin to get the wrenches. One day we were working together, and he called me up and he says, "Hey, can you just stop by? I need some help on this." So I stopped by, And he goes, I'm helping him with it, and he goes, how did you know how to do this? And I went, you're asking me what? How did you know how to do this? I said, you showed me. And he goes, oh, I guess I forgot. And so when you stop and think about this, God, who is personal, He's a personal God. He's an infinite God. And He has invited us to call Him Heavenly Father. He is interested in your life. And this is a very important principle because throughout this, almost every writer, there's over 36 writers, in what we call the Bible, and almost every single one of them, I'd have to study deeper, but it seems like every single one of them, God is telling the people that He loves, pay attention. Jesus, time and time again, would say, truly, truly, verily, verily. You would see it in English, and it was like, I think it's like our vernacular today, guys. Hey, listen up, pay attention. What I'm about to say, I want you to get, I want you to understand. He who has ears, that's most of us in the room, hear. Yeah, we usually do. But that's pay attention. That's why it's so important for us to read our Bible. You need to read your Bible. Not because man wrote it. I mean, you read a lot of stuff that men write, right? I've heard people say, well, I don't believe this because my English teacher, in college, she said this and didn't believe in the Bible. And you don't believe everything that you read. And you don't believe everything that she taught you in English, so why are you hanging on to that one thing, The whole idea is that the Bible begins to show us the mind of God. Not that we can read His mind, but as we get to know Him, we will know the direction that we need to be going. One thing that I thought that it took me a while to figure out as a stubborn kid, that my dad, as I got older and I got married and on my own in a sense, I would catch him at times pouting. My dad called me every day, unless he was pouting, and then he wouldn't call because he'd want me to call. But his mom did that for her 7 children as well. She called every one of them every day. And so as he would call, he would say, well, what's new? It's kind of like you asking your kids, hey, what'd you learn at school today? What do they say? Yeah. And so the whole idea is I realized that at one point, my father wanted me to ask him stuff. I need help. Can you help me? Hey, I need some, what do you think about this? Because I began to notice he would light up if I'd ask him a question that I needed help in. Because all of us are important to our Heavenly Father. He asks us to pray. It's like I used to think, well, why do I need to pray if He already knows the thoughts of my mind before I even think them? But just like an earthly father, He wants to know about your day. He wants to hear it from you. I mean, we know what our kids are learning in school, but we want to hear it from them. God talks about this in Deuteronomy chapter 7, verse 12. Moses wrote this, and God is speaking to His people. And let me give you a little background. It's the idea that they are leaving Egypt, where God had put them there and kind of incubated a nation, brought a nation out. Went in with just a family, and now they're coming out as a nation. And God begins to give them rules and laws in how they should function as a nation. And when you stop and you look at it, especially if you read through Leviticus, it's not just about rules of do's and don'ts, commandments, obey this. It's really about relationships and how they get along with one another. If you want to get along with one another, then we have to have some boundaries. We have to have some rules, and this is the way it works. And so God, as he speaks to Moses, and Moses begins to write this story down of how the nation is coming together, God says this in Deuteronomy chapter 7, verse 12. If you pay attention to what? these laws, okay? If you pay attention to these laws and are careful to what? Now there's our word. See, it's a direction. It's a movement. It's going someplace. If you pay attention to these laws and are careful to follow them, then the Lord your God will keep His what? Covenant. What kind of covenant is it? It's a covenant of love. Now, we think of rules and laws and commandments of not being very loving, right? But the whole plan here is this is the way that love is expressed to one another. You know, it's not like, you've heard me share this before, but it's not like you have a kid, and when the kid is born, you get a document of the house rules, and then you put his footprint on it, right? No, you put the footprint on what? On the birth certificate. Because he's a member of your family. He has been born. He is a person. She is a person. She has been born. And so the whole idea is, the reason that we put their footprints on it, you know, with the mom's fingerprints, or however that works, is the whole idea that they have become a part of a family. But it's not like we created a bunch of rules and said, okay, if you want to be a part of this family, then we've got to put your footprint on here, or you've got to sign this. No, actually, they become part of the family, and then the rules begin to come into play because of the way that we love them and protect them and want them to be a success, you know, in society. We begin to give them direction of this is how you need to get along with people. This is how you need to function through life. This is how that you will have a better life than the one that I had, you know, because as parents, we always want them to have better. And God leading them through says, be careful because I have a covenant. Now think about this. God went over and spoke to Abraham. Hey, Abraham, I want you to leave your family, and I'm going to take you to a place you don't even know it. There's not a map. There's not Google. You know, there's not Siri there to tell you how to get there. I'm going to take you to this place. You just follow me. I'm going to take you to a place, and then when we get there, I'm going to let you walk all over that place, and wherever you walk, that land is going to be yours. God tells Abraham, I know it's broken. I know that this world is messed up. But I have a plan. Follow me. And in that covenant of love, God tells Abraham, through you, through your loins, through your family, I am going to bless Israel. Is that it? No. God says, I am going to bless all nations through you. God had a plan. He saw that it was broke. He knew it was broke. And it wasn't like when Adam sinned, God said, oh no, what am I going to do now, you know? I'll wait till Abraham comes along. No, he had a plan from the very beginning. Even before the foundation of the world, he had a plan. And he says, if you pay attention to the law and be careful to follow them, then the Lord your God will keep His covenant of love with you as He swore to your ancestors. As you see this, God knows. God knows you just like He knows the nation of Israel. As they would come together as a nation, they would begin to look around at other nations and see how they function, just like you look at other families and see how they function, just like you look at other businesses and see how they function. You know, I come home sometimes and if I can, you know, when it was on, it's not on anymore, but I would watch Axemen. And I know what's fake and what's not because I do it every day. And she goes, don't you get enough of cutting timber every day? You know, you're out there. And I'm like, well, yeah, but why? She's like, why are you watching it? I said, because I'm learning. I'm looking for ideas. I'm looking for ways. I watch YouTube videos of different loggers that post stuff and different cutting techniques, different way they set up their landings and all this stuff. And I'm just looking. I'm learning. I'm trying to understand. But I also have to be careful in the way that I compare. Because just because they do it doesn't mean that it's being done right. You know, just because they may have a better or successful operation doesn't mean that I need to reproduce what they're doing if that's not the direction God wants me to go. You know, just because this family over here, and if you've had kids, if they're old, you understand this. If they're not, you will understand this. You know, when they come home to you and they go, I hate my family, I hate you, you know, I like so-and-so's family because they never ride his case, you know, he gets away with everything. He gets to do whatever he wants, you know. And it's like, whoa, wait a minute, time out. See, God knows that we will compare ourselves to other people. And He says, if you'll keep your focus, your attention to these laws, then I will help you. I will keep my covenant. I will give you direction. I will fix this thing. They would look at other nations and they would get distracted. And they would begin to do what the other nations are doing, and that's not what God called them to do. And then God would have to say, well, okay, if that's what you're going to... Because, you know, in our lives, when things are going smooth, it's like, oh, man, things are going smooth. God bless me. And then after a while, it's not just God bless me, it's look what I've done. And that's where, you know, instead of us giving God glory, we're giving ourselves glory, and that's where the rub comes in. And then after a while, we just kind of forget about God because things are going so smooth. But just like the nation Israel, when another nation would come over and take them over and drag them out of the country, they'd be going, oh, where's God? And then there'd be a remnant rise up and going, oh, God, we've sinned against you. We need to turn this thing back around. God, would you help us? And at one point, God kicked them out of the country for 70 years because of one of the laws, that they wouldn't let the land rest. See, every 7 years, the seventh year, they were to not plant anything. They were not to make money off of it. They were just to let it rest. And it's like, that's kind of weird. But it was a great system. But for 490 years, they wouldn't take care of the land. They wouldn't let it rest. You know what that's saying? That's really saying, God, I don't trust you to take care of me that 1 year. I need to take care of myself. And God said, well, you don't trust me? I'm going to have to take you out. Literally, 70 years, a whole generation dies off. Younger generation rises up and they seek God and they go back and they rebuild the walls and they rebuild the cities and they rebuild the land. And they become focused on who God is. And it's just kind of this vicious cycle. You know, they focus on God and they get away from God. And they focus on God and they get away from God. And they focus on God, it's like a two-cycle motor, you know. It's just the whole idea that we do the same thing in our life. Things are going smooth, we kind of forget about God. When things get rough, we're going, oh God, we need your help, you know. What captures your attention captures your life. What captures your attention, what focuses your attention, focuses your life on. Look at this. What you pay attention to directs your quality and quantity of life. What you pay attention to directs the quality and quantity of your life. Yeah, I've never had a family come to me and go, you know what, we need to start debating each other as a family and getting arguments because that'll really help us out. I mean, debates are good, don't get me wrong, but just to be arguing just for arguing's sake, has that really helped anybody? I mean, think about this. I've never had a family come to me and go, Mike, things are going really smooth, so we decided to start drinking and kind of, you know, spice everything up and so everybody would get along better, right? I've never had a family say or do that. I've never had a person come to me, you know, my life just fell apart, so I decided just to do drugs. So it would help me. I've never had somebody do that. I've had them do the opposite. I mean, King David even weighs in on this. He says this in Psalms 119, and you know, our focus verse is Psalms 119, 105. Thy word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. So I want to encourage you to read the whole Psalm 119. It's a big one. It's the longest one. It's like 176 verses. And this is the section that I focused on, this area of verses right here, 30s, of direction. And this verse says it best. Lead me in the path of your what? Commandments. This is David talking to his heavenly Father. Lead me, there it is, the direction. Lead me in the path of your commandments. Why? Because I love obeying speed limits. I love obeying stop signs, right? I mean, David is saying, lead me, because my rebellious heart is to do the opposite. I need you to lead me. I wonder if that's why Paul says, in Corinthians, for us that are getting, a little more gray-headed, the idea to finish well. David says, lead me in the path of your commandments, for I what? I delight in it. It brings freedom. It brings help. I thought about just blindfolding you all and letting you try to walk to the pond and back, right? Yeah, that's not a good one. I'll have to do something else. I was afraid Tom would fall or something. The whole idea is that it's not fun to walk around in darkness, right? So think about it like this. David, who had power. David, who could do anything that he wanted to, realized that if I pay attention to the path of the commandments, it's going to help my life. Look at the next verse. Verse 36. Incline my heart to your testimonies. I think of it like this. Help me to have the desire to hear your stories. And this is why we come together as Mosaic. Is so that not you just hear me preach, but that we could hear the stories of what God is doing in your life. We want to know what God did this week for you, because that encourages our heart. And David is saying, incline my heart to your testimonies, and not to what? Selfish gain. Because most of us think, well, I got extra money. This must mean that I get to spend it on me, right? I've got extra. It's mine. And we forget to go, wait a minute, God, maybe you have a plan for this. Maybe you have an idea for this. I had a fellow youth worker, they practiced zero budget. At the end of every month, they wanted to zero everything out and just trust God. And he had story after story. At the end of the month, they'd have so much money left over, and there was that much money that be needed for different ministry opportunities. Whether it was a girl that walked up to the door and said, hey, I'm raising money for this mission trip I'm going to go on this summer. And he'd go, how much do you need? She goes, well, I'll just take anything that you want to offer. He goes, no, how much do you need? And she gave him an amount, and he just got real excited. And he's like, honey, get the checkbook. God just answered our prayer right down to the penny. Incline my heart to your stories and not to selfish gain. And then he brings it home right here in verse 37. Turn my eyes from looking at worthless things. Turn my eyes from looking at worthless things and give me, or I like this translation, preserve my life in your ways. In other words, I understand if I follow your ways, my life will be better, will be preserved, will be focused. If you will help me not to look at worthless things. Because if I look at worthless things, I'm going to do what? Worthless things. I mean, people have to take a break from Facebook. Why? Because it eats up all your time. Sometimes you have to get off the internet because it eats up all your time. Sometimes you have to get off the TV set because it eats up all your time. Sometimes we get involved in things that's like, man, I wish I wouldn't have got involved in this. This is not a good spending of my time. You ever watch a movie and it's like the movie is so stupid but you can't turn away? It's like, I don't need to be watching this, but I can't keep from watching it, Exactly. Everyone has a story of where we got fixated on something and it distracted us. It led us astray. We drifted. we wasted our time. Attention influences direction, and every direction has a destination. Attention influences direction, and every direction has a destination. Solomon even weighed in on this with the direction of life. You know, it's like some friends of mine would tell me at times when they travel. He goes, I don't know what it is, but when I travel, it seems like that's the time that I get tempted to look at things I know I shouldn't be looking at. Watch things I know I shouldn't be watching. And he goes, it's like I can't help it. It's like all of a sudden it's there. I haven't seen it before, but when I'm traveling, it's like, whoa, there it is. So men have a hard time with that, because it's the idea. It's like, whoa, there's that temptation. And I know I shouldn't be looking at it, but I look at it. It's like I can't turn away. It's kind of like women shopping. It's like, it's there, I mean, it's like, oh, I see that. Now that I see that, I got to have that. It's like at the mall. You ever notice the mall, the chairs at the mall, which I like to sit and watch people, but they're never set where they're focused down the hallway. They're always set and focused where? Into a store. Into something they want you to buy. And we do that. I mean, that's why Walmart and all the different retail stores will set stuff in the aisles. They'll set stuff right up front because it'll be something that you didn't know ever existed, but when you saw it, now you have to have it. It's like being on the internet. It's like you look for stuff, it's like, oh, I've got to have that now. I buy one machine, and it's like I start looking at a bigger machine. And I start looking at a bigger machine, and I start looking at a machine that cuts a tree down. And then I start looking at a machine that don't cuts a tree down, but some people will send me links, it doesn't only cut the tree down, but it'll actually delimit and cut it and all this stuff. It's like, ooh, that would be nice, I mean, here's what Solomon says. It would be easier if he just says it, all right? Proverbs 4:25 through 27. Let your eyes look what? Straight ahead. Look straight ahead. Fix your gaze directly before you. Don't look this way. Don't look that way. It's like a friend of mine said his dad had a wreck the other day, and I was like, really? He goes, yeah, he was counting the neighbor's cows again. Because he was counting and he drove off the road, because he wasn't looking straight ahead. Now, I know sometimes we also have to look behind us to see where we come from. I've got a new series I'm working on. Hopefully that'll discuss that. But it's the whole idea. I grew up driving a semi-truck. I started driving when I was 12, just on the dirt roads and stuff where Dad needed an extra hand. That's what I would do. And I grew up I started driving a flat-nose semi-truck. I don't know if they make those things anymore. But the whole idea is you sit there with the steering wheel and there's the windshield and there's no hood. Because if you're like me, when you drive down the road in your car or your pickup truck, you have a spot on your hood that you kind of mark the white and yellow line, right? Especially the white line or the edge of the road. And that kind of marks where you are on the road, right? You kind of know where you fit in the lane. Well, First Baptist Gentry bought a big white bus, but it was a flat nose. And some of the guys were like, how do you drive this thing? I'm like, well, what do you mean? You just put it in gear and you go down the road. And he goes, no. How do you know where you are on the road? It's like I'm across the yellow line. I'm going off the edge of the road. And I'm like, you have to look behind you. What do you mean? You have to look in your mirrors and see where the white line is behind you because you can't tell where it is in front of you. But that'll give you a perspective of where you need to be going. Because we all have stories where our past was really screwed up. But if you kind of look in the mirror but fix your eyes straight ahead, it'll give you a perspective of where you need to be heading. And he says, fix your gaze directly before you. Look at the next verse. Give careful thought to the what? There it is again. Path for your feet, and be steadfast in what? All your ways. Stay focused. Keep going. I mean, dig your fingernails and toenails in and just hang on if you have to. But keep going. And he goes on And he keeps saying, verse 27, do not what? Turn. Don't turn to the right or to the left. It's like the kid in Sunday school class. You know, they were teaching the story about Lot's wife she looked back and turned into a pillar of salt. Little Johnny raised his head. He said, oh, that's nothing. My mama looked back the other day and turned into a telephone pole. Do not turn to the right or to the left. Keep your foot, what? From evil. You know, Jesus even shows us how important this is. In Matthew 6, 22 through 24, he says it this way. The eyes are the what? Lamp of the body. The eyes are the lamp of the body. Or today we would say the eyes are the light fixture of the body. They're the light. Everybody kept looking at me yesterday and going, what's wrong with your eye? I guess there's a little bloodshot over here, popped a vessel or something, I don't know. But we watch people's eyes. We look into their eyes. We gaze. And Jesus said, the eyes, that's the lamp of the body. So if your eye is what? Healthy. In other words, if your eye sees good, your whole body is what? Will be full of what? Light. Light's good stuff, right? I know you're not supposed to look directly into the sun. But when the sun is out, people are generally happier. If it stays cloudy for a long time, people get kind of bummed. And he says that the whole body will be full of light if your eyes will take in light. If you can see what's around you. Look at the next verse. But if your eye is what? Bad. And your whole body will be full of what? Darkness. Does anything good happen in the dark? You know, most of the news that you hear on TV, you know, in the evening news was typically from the night before. I mean, bad things happen all the time, I get it. But the whole idea is the idea that darkness here is not a good thing. It's a tendency toward evil. Why do people do evil things at night? Because they can't see. You know, why are places where you know you're not supposed to go usually dimly lit? I mean, think about it. If then the light in you is what? In other words, if you're all about the darkness, then that darkness is great. It'll just take you over. It'll encompass you. Yeah, whatever that word is. It's the whole idea. It'll just swallow you up. Now, I love spelunking. I love, there was a cave over here. You can't go in it anymore because of the bats, or even Devil's Den. You can't go in there much anymore. But the whole idea is that this cave over here called Logan's Cave. We'd heard about it, and I actually got saved in a bluff dwelling, you know, over by Weddington. So I guess I've just been intrigued, you know, to go. So you crawl into these things, and you turn the light off. And you like, your hand, you're trying to see it, you know. It's like, wow, oh, there it is, you know. But the whole idea, you try to see and you can't. And just a little sparkle of light can just seem like shine forever. When the darkness is so dark, it's like you can't see or do anything. It's like you're struggling. You know, when I get up at the night or in the morning, I don't turn the lights on. I don't turn the lights on because I don't want to wake anybody up. I don't want to wake myself up. And I have my path. And I know where it's at. But if something gets moved, that's not good, you know. But the whole idea is that if your eye is bad, your whole body will be full of darkness. In other words, your whole body will be bad. You'll do bad things. Like David, you'll do worthless things if you focus on worthless things. If then the light in you is dark, how great is that darkness? And look at the next verse. No one can serve two masters. For either he will hate the one and love the other, or he will be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and money. You see, Jesus knew what has your attention has your heart. And what has your heart is going to lead you in a direction. There's even a writer in Hebrews. We don't know who wrote Hebrews, but he said this in Hebrews chapter 2, verse 1. Therefore, we must pay much closer, what? What is it? Therefore, we must pay much closer attention to what we have, what? Heard, lest we drift away. Drift away from it. You know, I've heard this all my life growing up. If you don't use it, you will lose it. You know, the hardest thing on a car is to let it set forever. It needs to be run. It needs to have the oils and stuff move. It needs moving parts. If your body sets still for a long period of time, it gets stiff. We're made for movement. It's interesting, they even said that when God created the world, this canopy that was over the earth at the time, that the barometric pressure, okay, was real heavy. That it almost took like effort to move through. These are what they're thinking, you know. But the whole idea is that our body is made to kind of struggle. You know, to have resistance. It functions better. You know, if you go to a mountain in Colorado that's, 14,000 feet, you move a little bit and there's a lot less pressure. But it's really hard on your body because you can't get what? Oxygen. It's like, my kids are always coming to me going, "Are you okay, Dad? Are you okay, Dad?" "I'm fine. I just move slower. It'll be all right, But if you go down to the ocean, where it's heavy, it's like you breathe well. Well, some of us breathe well. As long as you don't have to run too far. But isn't it interesting that it's so easy to drift away? It's so easy to lose it, to forget. You see, attention leads to a direction. And a direction always leads to a destination. Or I'll put it like this. What you pay attention to, all right? Look at this. Chris, would you go and show it? What you pay attention to influences the direction, and every direction has everything to do with your destination. You want to impact the quality and quantity of your life? Then pay attention to His commands, His laws. Take them in. Learn from them. It's the word Solomon said, God said, "Learn from me." If you read through Proverbs, you'll see over and over again where Solomon says, "Sons, pay attention. Sons, pay attention." If you look at the writings of David, he says the same thing. "Sons, pay attention to my teachings. Son, pay attention to his commands." Focus. Pay attention. Because it influences your direction, your quality and quantity of life. Just because you have much doesn't mean that you're going to live a long life. It's interesting. There is only one commandment that kind of has a bonus to it. It says, "Honor your father and your mother, that your days may be long. Which, as a parent, I get that, because there are some days I always want to kill my kids, It's, I'll just take you out and just send you to Jesus and things will be all right? No, we don't want that. We want them to be long days. We want them to be fulfilling days. We do. We want you to get the most out of life. Because we understand that God has a plan. God has a destination. Now, it's not just about accepting Jesus, okay, and getting heaven. That's not what it's about. The destination is much more than that. The destination comes to the point of where when you accept Christ and you begin to pay attention to Him, He begins to lead you in a direction that is different than the direction you were on. That's why you look back in the mirror but not turn around and go back to it. But you keep your eyes fixed. As we've talked about through the missions, it's the idea of being the hands and feet of Jesus so that you may be able to see what He sees, that you'll understand. He'll give you understanding and wisdom to be able to do the work that He has created for you to do. And you have a different set of skills than I do. You have a different set of opportunities than I do. And God has brought you to this point, this place, even in history, because He has a plan for you. He has a destination for you. And at that destination, we all look forward to the day that our Heavenly Father will say, "Well done." What? "Thou good and faithful servant." But it doesn't end there. Do you know that? Because Jesus kept telling stories about people who had put their servants into positions and said, "Here, take care of this. I've got to go on a long journey. And when I come back, we'll settle the accounts." And in settling the accounts, it was, good job. But, while I was gone, I inquired other kingdoms. And so you've been watching over a little bit. I'm going to let you watch over a bunch. And so the whole idea is that, "Well done, thou good and faithful servant. Come here. You've been watching over a little bit of stuff. I've got a bigger plan for you. It's huge. I want you to watch over this galaxy. I want you to watch over this. I've got this I want you to take care of. I want to use your skills. I want to use the way that I've created you because I've got something more for you to infinity and beyond." God has a destination. So in order to get that destination, you need to know Jesus. And if you know Jesus, then you need to be inquiring of the direction. In other words, Jesus, what do I need to be paying attention to so that I know which direction I need to be going so that I end up in the destination that you have designed for me to end up in? He's much better than Siri. He knows everything. He knows so much about you that He's got the hairs numbered on your head. And for some, that's easier than others. But the whole idea is that He knows you. He knows things about you that you don't even know about yourself. And He's just waiting for the day to bring that out. He's waiting for the day and the opportunity that arises that you kind of go, "Wow, where did I learn that from?" And you go, "My Heavenly Father, He brought that in. He helped me focus. He gave me direction. He lead me to a destination." And so maybe you know Jesus and maybe you found direction. You need to be telling your stories. Not just your stories, His stories. You need to be sharing your testimony of what He's doing in your life. Because that's what encourages others to go, "Wow, if God's doing that for them, maybe God can do something for me. If God's leading them, maybe God will lead me." So I just want you to bow your head and close your eyes for a moment. Maybe you've never had an opportunity to invite Jesus to come into your life. Here's a great opportunity to do that. Maybe you've been thinking about it for a while, and now's the time to make that decision. You can easily do that by saying, actually what it says in Romans 10:9 and 10, if we confess with our mouth that Jesus is Lord and believe in our heart that God raised him from the dead, we shall be saved. Because it's with confession that we're made right. It's believing that we invite him to come in and take control. You can simply do that by saying, Jesus, I believe that you died on the cross for all my sin. Please forgive me of all my sin and come into my life and take control and lead me in the direction I need to be going. And he will do that. He will forgive you of all your sins. He will come into your life and he will help you. Maybe you're here this morning and you've invited Jesus to come into your life and you're wondering, what direction do I need to be going? Maybe you've drifted. Here's a great spot in your life to go, God, forgive me for drifting. Help me to get back on track. Help me to get focused. Lead me in your ways. Teach me your commands that I may follow you. Or maybe you're here today and you've invited Jesus into your life and you've got direction. Your prayer may be this morning, Jesus, show me who I need to share your story with. And give me opportunity and let me know when I need to be speaking for you or when I need to be doing something for you. When you need to use my hands and my feet, help me to be available and do it. And be bold about it.